September 17, 2025. Today was my Hermeneutics Day, which, in the words of P.R. Grimes, is the art of interpretation. My reading list is pretty long today. Before everything, I have been reading Giovanni's Room. I've been meaning to get James Baldwin, and so it's my first sort of entryway into him, the man himself. So I just finished part 1 of chapter 3, and I'm really liking the book so far. Then pivoting to the Corpus Hermeticum by Hermes thrice greatest, thrice blessed. I read book 7, In God Alone is Good, and Elsewhere, Nowhere. I have some quotes. Where there's passion, nowhere is there good. And where is good, nowhere a single passion. Yeah, I don't, what can I say, man? The Corpus Hermeticum in itself is a pretty complicated, it just has a long history, a lot of, I guess one might say, lore behind it, but it's interesting because a lot of sort of this day is filled with human lore, and talking about it always makes my temporality, it just makes me very aware of it, and highlights sometimes the brevity of one's existence, and also it makes me wonder sometimes what I do anything for. Studying, writing, if to break down or get a better idea of what the Corpus Hermeticum is, I recommend, because I don't really think I'm an educator. I'm just sort of talking to a reflection of myself. But the YouTube channel Esoterica has a pretty good introduction to it, and yeah, I guess there's a portion of the Hermeticum that's distinguished as the philosophical Hermeticum, and that's what I have in my hands. The translation by G.R.S. Mead, who is it came out in the 1920s or something like that, early 1900s, and yeah, it's just, I suppose, wisdom, but like it can, a lot of grandiose ideas, talking about the order and structure of the cosmos and the macrocosm and the microcosm, condensed into very few pages, and so it can be pretty hard to wrap my mind around. So I do end up reading it a few times and then annotating it. But at some point, because this translation is pretty dated, that's not to say wholly inaccurate, though there's a lot of like older English terminology, lots of like here I can just read an example, like doth, just a lot of stuff like that, and that yeah, you get what I'm saying. But another quote I had from this was, For what is not too bad down here is good, and good down here is the least part of bad. I suppose this reminded me of course, this sort of as above, what the as below is above. Sorry. I just realized what the noise actually was. For what is too bad down here is good, and good down here is the least part bad. So talking about the good of the one and the sort of primal source of everything. It's like, it just gets really big. The beautiful and good are integral parts of God, wedded to him alone and separate familiars. And then finally, and thus it is that they who do not know dare to call man beautiful and good, and even feareth that it should be taken from him, straining not only to preserve, but even increase it. And I guess what do I think about this? Doesn't matter what I think about it. I guess it matters in the way that it's something that I'm reinterpreting and filtering through my own life, or I'm not really enjoying the word life these days, so I prefer existence. But I guess to identify man as the center or the epitome of the beautiful and the good, but it's difficult to say because that one is sort of implicit in everything, in all of us, at least in the way that I understand these books, or the books in the Corpus Hermeticum, I mean. And so I guess to say that the source of that is man would be an error. Okay, man, okay, that was a lot. All right. Okay, then I think I watched then I went to The Forge and Crucible by Eliade, who is, man, what a guy. I'm pretty sure Chioran really quite liked him, or was fond of him. I'm reading The Forge and Crucible, which is the origins and structures of alchemy. I'm gonna read the quotes that I got down instead, and then maybe sort of something comes to mind. The myths concerning men. Okay, so I guess there's two myths. The chapter I read was called Terra Mater, Petra Genetrix. The myths, it talks about two myths. The ones concerning men born from stone, and then also the generation and ripening of stones and ores in the bowels of the earth. So this is also talking about metallurgy. Both have beliefs that implicit that stone is the source of life and fertility, and it lives and procreates human creatures just as it has itself been engendered by the earth. So the chapter before was talking about, I believe, the sexualization of, and I said that kind of aggressively, the world sexualized. So certain things like the sun and moon being engendered, but also transferring traditionally, at least to what I mean, there are cultures that do flip it around, but the sun is the man and the woman the moon, and also like the conscious and unconscious sort of also relating to each one. But anyways, and having that and applying that same idea to ores within the earth, in that that minerals do mature and that they do grow. I recall that there were times when mines were even closed off and left alone for, I believe, 15 years for it to replenish itself. So yes, mines were allowed to rest after a period of active exploration. And minerals have a different color at maturity than from that at their beginning, which is a quote that Eliade took from Palissy, I believe. And so then comes in the role of the alchemists or the metallurgists, who sought to bring nature to its utmost perfection, because that in itself is the goal of nature. And the sort of symbol for that was, or gold usually symbolized that, being the symbol of sovereignty and autonomy. And I suppose metallurgy, like agriculture, quote, ultimately gave to man a feeling of confidence and pride. He jogs and accelerates the rhythm. He does the work of time. And so falls into another quote, as we make bread, so we make metals. And the alchemist, like the metallurgist, if I'm saying that correctly, takes up and perfects the work of nature while at the same time working to make himself. So in accelerating this process, he seeks to perfect both nature and himself. So, final quote. Only God is the child of her desires, nature's desires. Gold is her legitimate son because gold is a genuine production of her efforts. Gold is thus the fruit at its most mature. Nature's final goal is the completion of the mineral kingdom, its ultimate maturation. The natural transmutation of metals into gold. Nature's final goal is the completion of the mineral kingdom, its ultimate maturation. The natural transmutation of metals into gold is inscribed in their destiny. The tendency of nature is to perfection. The alchemist as the brotherly savior of nature, and then going on to symbolize, talking about what gold symbolizes. So the alchemist is working in tandem with nature in the pursuit of perfection, and along the way perfecting oneself. And I think that's pretty freaking cool. And alchemy is sort of a predecessor to chemistry. And so that sort of leads into the next book I read, which was Alchemy, An Introduction to the Symbolism and the Psychology by Marie-Louise von Franz. I read the third lecture today on Greek alchemy. Oh my goodness. Okay, am I getting everything? Yes, I think so. I feel like there's more to say on the Forge and the Crucible. And there were a number of sort of naive recipes that were drawn up, but it goes back into, a myth between where Isis sort of slowly becomes the figurehead in Egyptian mythology. But also in a previous video that I filmed but didn't post, I talked about in the second lecture of this book, von Franz talked about an angel giving unto Isis the secrets of alchemy. But in doing so, the notion of the Old Testament, particularly the woman being the maleficent figure, being the middleman between Satan, the figurehead of evil, and humanity's ruin, the betrayal of God, the Father. And what this implicates, well, for one, it completely destroys any ambivalent or positive notion of what the snake could be. But also, more importantly, let's call it more important for now because we're talking about humanity. The criminalization of women. Okay. and so there's no like divine feminine, okay? I mean, Catholicism has sort of redeemed that with Mary, but when you refer to God, when most people would refer to God, it's with a he, him, capital H. Now, there was a introduction of the Sophia, which is the feminine embodiment of this, but of God, in wisdom, I believe. Anyways, but what the story of Isis does is that in retrieving this information from an angel attempts to, he's in a rush. He's like, I want to, we gotta fuck first. If you want to, we gotta do it. And she's like, I don't know, man. I want the secrets first. This is what happens. And then ultimately, when she never reveals if this actually happens, the betting, I mean, sorry to have been a little crude about it, but she does end up giving this knowledge unto her son Horus, and I believe Horus does something with it, and then man somehow along the way gets a hold of it, and then we have these sort of recipes for like alchemical opuses, things like the Philosopher's Stone, or even, but I think more naive things. I'm pretty sure this tradition goes as far back as to like medicine men and shaman in Africa. So potions for love or beauty or whatever it may be. But okay, now that we're sort of caught up, sorry, that was a lot. Alchemy and Introduction to the Symbolism in Psychology. I'll read off a few quotes, or at least the 4 that I wrote down. So active imagination, which is a Jungian concept, can be done with colors. Nowadays, we do it chiefly by painting or by writing stories, but it can also be done another way, by collecting substances and mixing them. This is what alchemy, I suppose, is. It's more than that, but at its very basic, fundamental, physical action, it's the mixing of these, or I guess is that what metallurgists do? Is alloy making? I don't know, but it is mixing things. That's what these recipes are. So, and then another quote earlier on. I kind of jumped around a little bit. So, in breaking down a certain myth, because it did come to a point where Greek and Arabic, particularly Egyptian mythology, ended up having some crisscross and having, and I guess mixing their DNA. So even Hermes Trismegistus is sort of, I'm pretty sure, the embodiment of Hermes, the Greek god, and then Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge, and I'm pretty sure some third entity, and I'm not quite sure what that is, but I don't know. But that's just sort of to show this entanglement. And so if there are two myths, one which is more or less the opposite of the other, or the same thing with a different evaluation, we can only conclude that there is a basic uncertainty in the human being, and even in his consciousness. The problem is real and not invented, and we have to look at it from both angles. I guess, just in my own personal life, being confronted with a situation where there are two people with, say two people will get into an argument, and they both have different stories. I mean, one's not going to consider only one side, because that would only be half of the story. And this can also be found, I suppose, in between psychoanalysts and their analysands. Franz goes on to say, "This is why it is so difficult and in a way misleading to report on case material, for certain things come up which cannot be told, because the thing is ineffable, the thing itself. You can tell the dreams and repeat what you have told about the analysand, only about their meaning, but you know perfectly well that you are only telling half of the story." So talking about those intangibles that one sort of forms. So the example she uses that, say when you are with someone you know very well, and you can sort of just say a certain set of things that can allude to another set of things without even having to say that second set. Or even someone laughing, and because you know this person, you have a hint into the way, because of the way they laughed, you have a hint into the idea as to why. And sometimes maybe that can bother you, or sometimes that can even trigger a laughter of one's own. And then there is a figure called Aker, Aker, and this figure is found on tombs in Egyptian tombs, and Aker can be sort of, it represents, I'm just going to read this and then I'll get into see if it triggers anything. Is a space which contains the dead. Aker is a space which contains the dead, or the images of everything which exists. He is not only the double lion or the door to the beyond, but that mysterious space in the underworld, which are the dead people in the images. He watches them and has them in their arms. And earlier on, you see, so that double-headed lion is the Rwiti. I think it's RWTI. The Egyptian double line with the disk of the sun representing Aker, the moment when the sun reappears after its journey through the underworld, i.e. the rebirth of consciousness after the night sea journey. I became quite interested in this figure because I suppose, so just before the resurrection, the sun god is represented as an ichthyophallic man lying on his back with erect phallus, and around him is the snake which eats its own tail, the Ouroboros. But so Aker, it's an Aker, I suppose, in this example, in talking about this myth, or, I mean, it's not so much, the physical aspect isn't so much the myth as much as the symbols telling the story. But there is also Acheron or Kerkeros. Okay. Oh my god. All right. So this is where sort of the entanglement comes into play, and that's why she says that one has to look at sort of both sides of the coin, because Acheron can be is also represented in Greek forms. Oh my goodness, what am I saying? I promise this is real. I'm getting something right. The river Acheron in the underworld, or in the Greek underworld. I can't remember, and I can't find it right now. But I'm interested in this figure because it sort of represents this point between like yesterday and tomorrow. It's more than just the moment, though. It's the context which exists around it, and that's a pretty loaded symbol, man. And so it's easy to flatten these things into sort of just the visual, but in understanding what it symbolizes, I think it can really expand and broaden one's idea of what that can mean. And in a way, it sort of touches on that primitive void, which I suppose postmodern religious ideas no longer fulfill because of the sort of turning away from religion. And even in the sort of with the hippie era, there is that as well. But so Acher means that moment, means not only the moment, but also the place and situation. The situation of death and resurrection, of yesterday and tomorrow, of the resurrection and regeneration of the sun god. And so the depiction of it in this book is here. And yeah. But this is like the sun sort of going down, and it's just it made me think of because I was reading, yesterday was my psyche day, and I was reading James Hillman's The Dream in the Underworld, and particularly it was section the section called The Brood of Night in the 3rd chapter on the psyche, and he talks about Eros being more closely related to death than one might assume. So I'll just read this. It's Eros is the brother of death and not the principle that will save us from it. And he ties sort of sleep and Thanatos to death, or Hypnos and Thanatos were twin brothers and part of the Great Brood of Night. Is it of night? I could be wrong in saying that. I don't. But this it's part of one big thing, including in dreams is tossed into that as well. But what a person, quote, what a person says about love tells more about the person than about love. It tells within which fantasy his or her experience of Eros is being enacted. Going back to so Eros is closer related to death and this sort of underworld than one might, I guess nowadays, initially associate it with. And just pivoting back as a last thing, so when the sun god is represented as a man lying on his back with an erect phallus, and around him is the snake which eats its own tail, I think of that. I wrote in the margins, Eros, ? Does the sun god not bed the moon, night, night here? I don't know. Maybe it's a stretch in thought, but it was a connection I made, and I thought that was interesting. And even, I believe I was reading von Franz's essay in Man and His Symbols yesterday as well, because it was, again, that love ultimately aims at becoming whole. And when one is sort of possessed by that kind of love in which it seems nothing else matters except the union between the self and the other person. I mean, I suppose she said that the passion is gesturing towards that which is beyond love, because love is in one way or another sort of maybe a gateway into that sort of beyondness, because it's sort of can I say I don't think exemplifies is the right word, but sort of expands that sort of or touches that goodness. I don't know. See, I have to think about it more. But again, I'm sort of just thinking out loud here. And then I finished up with the Emerald Tablet. I've been reading Franz and Cotnoir's The Poetry of Matter, or Alchemy, The Poetry of Matter. So maybe this is more like Alchemy Day. But I sort of have been using it to complement everything, trying not to take it too seriously, because with everything else I am annotating, and that is in itself can be pretty draining. But yeah, I know I messed some stuff up about the love thing. That's gonna bother me. Let's see, what page is it on? It's on nope, I don't even have the book. I'm not even gonna go for it. Okay, but 30 minutes. This was probably my longest video. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Today was dense. But I'm feeling good, sort of. I'm tired. Tomorrow is my pessimism day, and those authors are always pretty fun. And yeah. Maybe I'll probably do that day. I don't know if I'll post that day, but I will eventually. But it typically consists of, like, right now, Schopenhauer to Nietzsche, to Thomas Ligotti, and even Eugene Thacker. If I have energy and time left, I'll maybe even throw, like, Chodan on top. But I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, thank you for watching if you did get to the end. Totally understandable if you double speed through my ramblings, but that's what we're doing here, rambling. I don't know. Okay, take it easy. Peace.